All right, we are live here in beautiful, sunny Florida. And today, fight fans, we're going to be breaking down UFC 215. And where are we at? We are in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada here. Awesome. Two title fights here. Good pay-per-view, man. Not the best by any means, but I love this card. I love this card from a fan perspective. All kinds of awesome stuff. And man, I shouldn't even feel like I should be saying beautiful sunny Florida because it's a rough time over here, guys. But I think we'll stick through with each other and we'll get through this. Hopefully, not too bad. But I appreciate you guys all hitting me up and wishing me safe. So definitely appreciate that. But man, I am very happy because I have two amazing guests here. Returning Daniel Levy, always happy to have him on. And for someone I've always wanted to have on my show. Very excited. Paul Shag of the old school bookie beatdown is here. Awesome to have these guys. Paul, how are you, man? And really, how has this last few months been for you?
It's been good. It's been a bit interesting. I've been doing some work way outside of my regular realm. Just kind of sending out resumes and looking for stuff in the field that I'm trained and what I've done before, production, video production, that type of stuff. Without getting too deep into it, because it's probably boring, but kind of interesting, but like really boring, was I was working on a car lot in a car dealership, just kind of a maniacal type of cast and crew that I was working with there. It was a strange 3 months, more or less just to pay the bills, still sending out resumes and that type of stuff. But moving on to bigger and better things in the next little bit here, which I'm not at liberty to say right now in a live format, but it should be big.
Well, I'm glad to hear you've been doing well, man. I know there's tons of people that are excited that you're here back talking about MMA. And Dan, how are you doing today, man? Glad to have you back.
Doing amazing, man. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm glad to hear that you're doing well despite the hurricane. And Paul, it's also good to speak with you, my man. Kelton, thanks again, bro. What's going on?
It's always a pleasure, man. And not much, man. After that month-long break, it got me so refreshed for UFC once again. I know we had a card last week, but it wasn't a card quite like this. That was just a little European fight night. Now we actually have some legit fights on our hands, and I'm super excited to talk about them. From a betting perspective, man, honestly, I'm not too high on this card from a betting perspective. I do have 4 plays, but if you guys know me, that's a little low for myself, but nonetheless confident, especially in one guy. One guy I pretty much have the whole night riding on them there, but we'll get to that in just a second. We're going to be breaking down the whole 12-fight card, and starting off here with the fight I was just alluding to, we got Adriano Martins minus 440 taking on Cajun Johnson plus 350, and I'm going to let Paul start out with this one.
Well, what really is there to say? They opened it up at what, like minus 230 plus 170, and within an hour, the line just shot up to over minus 400 in some spots right now. It's like minus 400 is the base layer right now. I've seen as high as minus 440, and it totally makes sense. First off, you got Martins, who's a very crisp, accurate striker. Just ask Islam Makhachev all about that, but Cajun Johnson, there's just disgusting amount of red flags around this guy. Hasn't fought in 2 years, almost to the day when he actually steps into the cage there. It'll be like 3 weeks short of 2 years. He's always had injuries and all these other problems. Plus, when they had that little UFC fighter gathering, I forget what it was called, the Fighters Retreat, he was like up there in the UFC's grill saying, being like the voice of fighters need more money and causing a big stir there. So, on top of that, he started, I don't even know if he's at TriStar for this gym or for this camp. He started a gym out in BC with his one friend. He's spending all the time out there as well. This sounds like a situation where he's just like, hey, bud, we started this new business together. Why don't I go fight? If I win, it's great promotion for our gym. If I lose, it's $15,000 for our gym. UFC setting him up close to home, but this is a tall task for him, and I understand the line movement. I feel pretty safe even parlaying Martins at this point. I don't see Cajun Johnson coming away with a victory on Saturday night.
Dan?
You know, man, there's a time and place for everything, and the time to voice your concern is not while, you know, someone's on stage, you know, presenting a show, and that's exactly what Cajun Johnson did. And as a result, they're feeding him the Adriano Martins. We know for a fact that Cajun Johnson is susceptible to that counter right hand. Not only does he get knocked out a lot, but he gets his jaw broken a lot. Who has the best counter right hand? Arguably in the game right now, in the lightweight division, I think it might be Adriano Martins. I mean, you saw the knockout of Islam Makhachev. One does not simply knock out Islam Makhachev or any of the Russians. They're some of the toughest warriors on planet Earth. He took down Rustam Khabilov 3 times in their fight, which you guys also know one doesn't simply do. I mean, dude, the line speaks for itself. You got to go with the favorite here, Adriano Martins. I think maybe the first round will be somewhat competitive. Don't get me wrong. I think he could put him away in the first round as well. But I'm going to guess that, you know, Cajun throws one of his jab to, you know, high kicks. And when that high kick comes, that's when Adriano Martins is going to counter with his right hand and put him to sleep, break his jaw for a 3rd time.
Yeah, so these guys pretty much said it all. This is, in fact, my most confident pick of the card. Hot take, even more confident than Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. I think Adriano Martins should be somewhere around -800, -900 here. Really, I was trying to come up with something that Cajun Johnson has an advantage in this fight, and really all I could come up with is the home crowd advantage, but I don't think he's going to be able to make it close enough for biased judging, biased reffing. I think Adriano Martins has him beat pretty much everywhere here. Whether he wants to strike with Cajun Johnson, whether he wants to take him down, he's got the grappling advantage. I see this as a very, very easy matchup for Mr. Martins. That all being said, he is my biggest play of the night. I do have him in parlays, just 3 parlays on the night, and he's in all 3. I think he's my 2nd biggest bet ever. I just don't see Cajun Johnson winning this fight, and I'm very confident. And I think he probably gets this done via knockout. I'll say early 2nd round for Adriano Martins there. But moving on, man, we got a newcomer Canadian heavyweight. We got Arjan Bhullar, not sure if I pronounced that right, -190, taking on Luis Henrique, +165. I'll start out with Dan on this one.
You know, I think I got to go with the newcomer, but there wasn't much film. But the film I was able to watch, you know, it kind of reminded me of back when, like, DC was fighting Jeff Monson. You know what I'm saying? You could kind of see the glimpses here and there, but it wasn't, you know, a complete product. I think that's kind of what we see with this new guy. And that should be enough to take out Henrique, but at the same time, that UFC experience counts for a lot, so it wouldn't surprise me to see an upset. But I will go with the favorite, you know, via a very controlling decision, maybe a late TKO.
Yeah, man. So I honestly, to be honest, I didn't do any research on this fight until today, just because I was going through and editing my DraftKings lineups. And one thing I noticed is that Bhullar is he's underdog money on DraftKings, whereas in the betting lines he's -190. So I saw value on there on DraftKings, so I added him to my DraftKings lineup. But then I went and did the research. I saw that this dude is pretty tiny for heavyweight standards. He's not all that athletic. Not so much to like about the guy. I understand why he's favored, but I think this should probably be closer to pick him. I kind of want to give this to Luis Henrique. I kind of want to pick the dog here just because, like Dan said, he's got the UFC experience. He's a huge guy. I mean, this is a guy that used to fight at 205. I watched those fights. He looked like a completely different man. He is just a massive human being right now, and a much more massive human being than Bhullar. I think once weigh-ins happen, I think a lot more money is going to shift over to the underdog Henrique. So if you like Henrique, I say get those bets in now. But I will go with Henrique. I think he's going to win this via probably a very boring decision where he's stuffing the majority of Bhullar's takedowns and probably winning a sloppy heavyweight striking match. So that's just my opinion. I like the underdog here, but no bet for me passing on this fight. What about you, Paul?
That's actually a good read in terms of the sloppy striking heavyweight contest. That's what I think is going to probably happen here. Bhullar, I believe, is how it's pronounced, which is not ethnic at all. But I was watching a couple of videos on him today, and it's actually just Bhullar. I was kind of surprised by it. But either way, he's a Commonwealth Games gold medalist and a Pan American Games bronze medalist in wrestling. And I've watched a couple of his, a few highlights, not even full fights of his stuff from Hard Knocks. And I don't really see very much striking in there. What does Henrique like to do? Henrique's usually the guy trying to initiate the takedowns and initiate the scrambles. So if this ends up on the feet, I haven't really seen enough tape. I've seen Bhullar just kind of charging like a bull, just winging shots from all over the place. Like, I don't know how that's gonna fare when you have two big 250-pound man right across the ring from you. It's a straight up pass for me, just because I don't know what Bhullar is like on the feet, and if Bhullar is able to take him down at will, then I think he's probably pretty good down there too. But it's a pass from a betting perspective. But if on DraftKings, if you get Bhullar at dog price, it's probably worth a couple looks, because DraftKings takedowns, 5 points per takedown, you're looking at a big night if you can secure like 4 or 5 of them and the win.
For sure, man. So moving on here, a fight I am very excited to talk about. I know Dan Levy is very excited to talk about this fight. We got Alex White minus 190 taking on Mitch Clark plus 165. And I'll start out with this one, man. So I was very excited these past week or two, just because Mitch Clark is actually like heavy favorite money on DraftKings. So I was expecting to get Alex White at a dog price here, but did get a decent price on him. I think he opened up somewhere around the minus 120 range. I missed that. I parlayed him up around minus 160. But yeah, spoiler alert, I do love Alex White here. I think Mitch Clark is on a much lower level than Alex White. I don't think Alex White is some world beater by any means, but the dude has like really had some impressive performances and shining moments in the octagon. So last fight out against Tony Martin, he goes up one weight class, fights Tony Martin, who's a very, very good fighter, a guy I'm very high on. He goes 3 rounds with Tony Martin, cracks Tony Martin at one point and drops him. So honestly, man, I think that was that's stock up for Alex White, in my opinion there. He's got a win over Artem Lobov, who a lot of people want to make jokes on Artem Lobov, but he's not some terrible fighter. I would probably pick Artem Lobov to beat Mitch Clark. That's just me. But then we go on the other side here with Mitch Clark. The guy is 2-4 in the UFC, I want to say. 2-4. He had that win against Ally Quinta, and I think that win, just seeing that on his resume, I think that's the reason why the odds here as close as they are. I think Alex White should be somewhere around the minus 280 range here. I think he's probably better everywhere, although Mitch Clark does have that good grappling. One doesn't simply submit Ally Quinta, so the dude does have good grappling, but I think Alex White can absolutely hold his own. He held his own with Tony Martin, although he did lose in the grappling exchanges. He didn't get subbed, so I think Alex White, maybe the first round could be tough. Mitch Clark could come in strong for some takedowns and look for that sub, but I think Alex White, over the course of 3 rounds here, probably beats Mitch Clark, if not gets a late TKO stoppage, and that's what I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick Alex White via a 3rd round TKO here, and I do have him in a 2-unit parlay with Adriano Martins. I got that at plus 103 to win 2.06 units, and I do have Alex White in the one DraftKings lineup I have as well. So Dan, what do you think of this one, man?
Well, Kelton, you said that that Mitch Clark is 2-4 in the UFC. In my opinion, he's 0-6 in the UFC, you know, because you look at that fight with Iaquinta. And, I mean, that fight with Iaquinta is like, I mean, look, Sarah beat GSP. Charlie Brenneman beat Rick Story. You know, he's allowed to have that one fluke win. And in that fight, I mean, look, obviously the end result is all that matters. But in that fight, man, he was getting his ass whooped. He got a Darce choke from side control bottom, which you're probably never going to see him do ever again. You watch his other win in the UFC against John McGuire. He arguably lost that fight.
He was crying when they actually read his name on the scorecards because he was so shocked.
I mean, this is a guy that got TKO'd by John Cholish. And, I mean, look, this opportunity only comes around once a year when you get to fade Mitch Clark. And not only do I get to fade Mitch Clark, I get to fade Mitch Clark at minus 130. So it opened up like minus 170, minus 175. And then some early action came in on Mitch. I was like, okay. So I moved in at minus 130. I put 4 units on it. And, I mean, dude, look, you know, you talked about how he went up a weight class. Honestly, I think he should stay at 55. I'm talking about Alex White now. He actually looked bigger than Tony Martin out there. It's just that Tony is a very physical dude. And despite his physicality, Alex White still managed to drop him in that fight. But Tony, you know, Tony's a very tough and experienced guy. I guarantee you, if he drops Mitch Clark, that's game, set, and match. I mean, I think it's going to be a first-round knockout. So for that reason, I got 4 units on Alex the Spartan White.
Paul?
What I'm going to say is basically just for the sake of devil's advocate here. He said first-round knockout. One thing that Mitch Clark has been shown himself to be able to do, besides in the Duffy fight where he just kind of got steamrolled and then subbed, is he's been way too tough for his own good. He's been able to endure and take the damage in the fights. If this is any sort of ways of competitive, if we look back to most recent Canadian fights, like our cards in Canada, the judging has been terrible. As the lone Canuck on this panel here, I'd like to apologize for that. But it is what it is. He is from, I believe, Calgary or Lethbridge. Either way, he's from like a couple hours away from Edmonton, Alberta. The crowd will be on his side. If this goes to decision, and he's supposed to lose the decision, would this be the spot where I wouldn't be surprised if the Canadian judges rear their ugly head again? I wouldn't be. I really hope for Dan's sake that this type of thing does not play out. I am picking Alex White, especially on DK. DK 7,400, like all the Alex White, please. But I'm just saying, I know Dan's always, a lot of these split decisions, you're picking, if it's a close fight and he's getting plus money, he's been on the right side and the wrong side, as we all have before. I could see a total robbery happening. But all of this being said, if I'm saying the only chance that Mitch Clark has to win this fight is to get an absolute disgusting Canadian rob job, then I think your money's safe with Alex White at -130.
Paul, honestly, man, I love the split decisions, but that's the last thing I'm worried about. If you watch Mitch Clark fight, I mean, let's be honest, because I know a lot of people that haven't watched the tape, they're saying stuff like, Mitch Clark has the grappling advantage. If you watch the tape, this dude has no grappling advantage. He doesn't have any advantage in this fight. The only advantage is it's in Canada. But, when you lose a fight 30-27 or 30-26, if it goes to the judges' scorecards, that will be the kind of fight it is. They're not going to rob Alex White. But that being said, he's probably going to knock him out, so it's all good.
I'm just saying, be worried. Just be careful. Don't be shocked.
This ain't Leandro Silva versus Jason Sago. It's all good.
Our Canadian judges have become the bar for the worst judging in the game right now. Not something I hold my hat high for, but it is what it is.
Hopefully that's on full display in the main event. I'd love to see a +800 upset.
Oh, yeah. He's got to win by sub, though. But we'll get to that later.
But, yeah, man, we've been talking about some low-level Canadian fighters here, but man, I am excited about this Canadian fighter right here, man. We got Gavin Tucker -260 taking on Rick Glenn +220. I'm gonna let Paul start out with this one.
Gavin Tucker was kind of that surprise guy at the fight card in Nova Scotia where there wasn't very much tape on him. We didn't really know what to expect, and then all of a sudden he shoots out of a cannon. Guy's super, super fast, crisp, coming in from different angles. Now let it be known that he was going up against Sam Cecilia, who's kind of a slow, plodding guy, which was the perfect kind of style matchup for him to be able to, implement his game the way that he did. But he looked really good. And on top of that, a lot of people think, people think he's a young prospect or whatever. He's 31 years old. Like, he probably is what he is right now, but what he is a very, very slick, competent striker. So, Rick Glenn, no slouch on the feet either. I was feeling I liked Rick Glenn a lot until that the last fight that he had in New York against
Nover,
the former the soon to be Anderson Silva, right? And that was way too close. I was big on Glenn going into that fight. It was way too close for comfort. I understand the line movement here, but I'm kind of hesitant to jump aboard Gavin Tucker just because we've kind of only seen him against Sam Cecilia, who's a guy who, let's face it, was kind of getting what I used to call the Marcus Brimage treatment, where it's like new prospects coming in. You get Marcus Brimage, it means the UFC thinks big things of you. Sam Cecilia kind of became that for 145 pounds after Brimage got cut. So I'm a little hesitant at minus 260 to jump aboard. If anybody got the earlier lines that they were released as, good on you. But I think I'm going to sit this one out.
Dan?
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point about him being 31 years old and us calling him a prospect. But at the same time, he's 31 years old. But in MMA years, MMA mileage, he's not quite 31 years old. He's a little bit younger, you know? And one thing I really like about him, there's a lot of things. But firstly, he brings that point fighting style to the cage. I love betting on point fighters. I don't love betting this spot at minus 260 or whatever it is because, you know, he is an undefeated fighter. And to many people, that sounds like, oh, he's undefeated. I got to bet on him. But to me, everyone has to take that first L. It does not matter who you are. This could be that.
Not Khabib.
He took an L to the tail, bro. But anyways.
Tiramisu.
Yeah. What was I saying? Sorry,
I interrupted you.
It's all good. Okay.
Everyone's got to take that L, you were saying.
Yeah. So everyone's got to take that L, and sometimes it happens to like people that aren't as good as you. So, you know, you saw Benny lose to Ramsey Nijum. You know what I'm saying? Like that first L, there's always that first L, and there's always that what the fuck L. And it could be either one of those that's going to happen. But at the end of the day, you know, I do have to go with Rick Glenn. I think he's going to be able to use that footwork, point fight, mixing a takedown at the end of the rounds. But, man, Rick Glenn is a rugged, tough dude. He's very tall for the weight class. He's very experienced. He's a former World Series of Fighting champion. He made Georgie Karakanian quit with a body kick. I mean, you know, the fight went a little bit longer than that, but it was the body kick that, you know, started the end. Dude's tough as hell. He's training at alpha male now, which means to me that maybe his takedown defense is better. I don't think all of a sudden he's going to be shooting doubles and singles because that's not what he's known for. I was surprised that he left Rufus Sport because, you know, that's the gym that brought him up. But the dude's a vet. I wouldn't be surprised if he found a way to eke one out. But I got to go with the favorite, the hot prospect that's 31 years old, Gavin Tucker.
Yeah, man. So for me, I've been struggling with picking this fight all week, honestly. And earlier today, honestly, ever since the line came out, I've been eyeballing down an underdog play on Rick Glenn. But really, when I started to look at it, so basically, obviously, both these guys strikers. Gavin Tucker, he did come in first UFC fight, looked great, but like Paul alluded to, it was against Mr. Sam Cecilia, so you can't take away too much from that. And especially, I mean, I know Gavin is a point fighter. He's not necessarily a finisher, but he wasn't able to finish Sam Cecilia, and I know a lot of guys that were able to finish him. I don't think that means a whole lot, though. It was just his UFC debut. But this clearly, 100% without a doubt, is by far his toughest matchup thus far. Rick Glenn, he's had 2 UFC fights now. He had that really tough one going up a weight class against Evan Dunham. Evan Dunham is a staple of like the UFC's top 20 of the 155-pound division for a long time now. That was a tough fight for him. Last time out against Nover, got the victory, but it, like Paul said, it was a little too close for my liking. I think Tucker probably has the striking advantage here, but where I see Glenn's possibility of winning this fight, I think just his size, his strength, I think working over in Team Alpha Male, I think he might be able to utilize a wrestling-based game plan. And I mentioned this earlier to Dan. I think Rick Glenn might be able to take the wrestling approach, but he pointed out to me when's the last time Rick Glenn took the wrestling approach, and he really hasn't. I'm not saying he can't. I'm not saying he can. I just, at this point, I don't really feel like taking the shot whether he can or can't. Even if he goes for it, who knows if he gets it. So I don't know, man. I think the most likely thing here probably is Gavin Tucker outstriking Glenn here over the course of 3 rounds. I think the line is still a little wonky. I think Gavin should only be about like minus 170, minus 180 here. I think that's a little too high for my liking, but I got Gavin Tucker here. Although it pains me because I did want to have an underdog play on Glenn, but I am passing ultimately, so I do have Gavin Tucker here, man. So yeah, I almost wanted to put Rick Glenn in DraftKings, but I ended up passing on that as well. But man, I do like I do like Tucker here. I think he has a high ceiling. We'll see what he can do. But moving on here, man. And I'm going to be honest, this is probably the only fight of the card I didn't do my research on, and probably rightfully so. We got Ashley Evans Smith minus 250 taking on Sarah Moras plus 210. Just going to give a brief explanation. I think Ashley Evans Smith is probably the better grappler. Should be able to out-wrestle Moras here over the course of 3 rounds, get a 30-27 decision, play the over. I would probably stay away from parlaying Smith at the price, but I wouldn't advise you to bet Moras as well. So pass on this fight, but I got Evan Smith via decision. What about you, Dan?
I mean, dude, Ashley Evans Smith is minus 250 in a UFC fight. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Ashley by decision, but I mean, would it really surprise you if Moras won? Because remember when Moras took the back of Jessica Andrade and almost choked her out, but the bell rang and she wasn't able to? So, you know, you also saw that fight between Raquel Pennington and Ashley Evans Smith, and Ashley was tooling her, and then she got caught in a choke. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but don't be surprised. I'll go with Ashley, you know, because she trains with Cheeto Vera, who's a cool dude. Like, you know, I'm basically getting to the point that who gives a fuck? You know what I'm saying? Move on.
Paul?
I just wanted to bring up, remember the time that that Sarah Moras beat Alexis Dufresne while being on bottom at the Ultimate Fighter 19 finale? Yeah, she was taken down like basically the entirety. I was live for that fight. That was the death of BJ Penn, the first death of BJ Penn, first real death of BJ Penn. But yeah, that fight was just like I don't understand how she won. Like she was taken down constantly, taken down, grind it, and then she was doing these little slaps from bottom or whatever. And Dufresne started gassing because I think she missed weight by like 7 pounds, which has been the story of her career moving forward. Either way, she showed a propensity to get taken down and grinded. I think Ashley Evans Smith will be able to employ that game plan. I want nothing to do with this from a betting perspective, but gun to my head, it's maybe take a shot on Ashley. I'm not betting, but I mean I'm picking Ashley Evans Smith to get the job done here in a very, very lackluster affair.
Paul, you'll play devil's advocate for Mitch Clark, but you won't do it for Sarah Moras?
She's awful.
What's Mitch Clark?
Sarah Moras, I don't understand. Like her only win in the U.S. Okay, so she was on the Ultimate Fighter. She beat Peggy Morgan, the Daywalker. Then she lost to Juliana Pena later on. Pena ended up winning the show, so whatever. She ended up beating Alexis Dufresne, and this is in July of 2014. Then after that, she lost to Andrade, and she's had canceled bouts since July of 2015. No thanks. I'll pass. I'm not even gonna play devil's advocate. Give me AES. That's all I got.
So moving on, man, we got Henry Cejudo minus 330 taking on Wilson Hayes plus 270. And I'll start out with this one, man. I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting matchup for sure. I think the line is a little off here. I do favor Henry Cejudo. I like the improvements he's made to his striking. I thought his striking looked real good against Benavidez. I thought he won that fight against Joseph Benavidez. Could have gone either way, not a robbery by any means, but I did score it for him. And then unfortunately he got that fight canceled against Sergio Pettis. He possibly injured his hand. Could have been a weight problem. Who knows what it really was. But I think he's really got probably a lot easier matchup here in Wilson Hayes, and I think the line shows that. It's just tough for Wilson because, don't get me wrong, Wilson's a good striker, but I don't think he has some massive advantage here over against Cejudo. I think if anything, Cejudo will probably be able to outstrike Hayes, and Hayes is going to want to get it to the ground where he has the huge grappling advantage. But then Henry Cejudo has that wrestling background. I don't think I do think the takedown defense is going to hold up for Cejudo here. So I think we're looking at a kind of a close striking match, but I do ultimately favor Cejudo in that striking match. Not by a whole lot, not minus 330 a lot, but I do favor Henry here. I couldn't quite pull the trigger on Wilson. I even wanted to put Wilson in DraftKings. I did have him in my lineup for a sec, but I took him out. I couldn't do it. I think Henry has this, man. Don't want to parlay him up at minus 330, though. That's not something I want to do. But I do have Henry winning this, I'll say, via a 29-28 decision. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I'm more or less on the same page as you. I think Cejudo, especially in that Benavidez fight, kind of proved that he's fast and capable on the feet, that I think he's going to have the edge on the feet against Wilson Reis. I don't see Wilson Reis, unless it's some like crazy scramble where he manages to find the back, kind of like a Jussier Formiga. Formiga is really good at that. Wilson Reis, if he's able to get your back, all bets are off. I think that's kind of the path to victory for him here. Otherwise, I see him kind of just getting picked apart from the outside. They both got absolutely torched by DJ. Everyone gets torched by DJ, but DJ really showed that if you have speed from the outside, you can really pick Wilson Reis apart. And without being able to go to that takedown as a backup plan, I think he's going to be a fish out of water. I like Cejudo. I don't really like I'm not going to be parlaying Cejudo here, minus 330 either, but I think he's going to get the W here.
Dan?
How's Cejudo's weight cut going?
Who knows?
I think he ate some shrimp or something. What was it that one time?
How's it? Yeah, the tacos against Chico.
Taco.
How's it doing? Because, I was supposed to cash a plus 320 on Sergio Pettis, and, some of my friends that are on Team Pettis, they saw, Cejudo's hitting the pads, but he's cutting a lot of weight, but he was hitting the pads perfectly fine. And then, he says he had a hand injury, and we all know it was the weight cut. You know that Cejudo's pulled out of 7 fights? So, I hope he makes weight. I hope he shows up. If he shows up and makes weight, it's going to be interesting because I think there's some misconceptions about Cejudo, and I kind of bought into the hype a little bit myself because when I looked at his fight with DJ on paper, I was like, okay, well, this guy's a gold medalist, Olympian wrestler. He's a Golden Gloves boxer, so he's got the best of both worlds, right? Wrong, because he can't put it all together when it counts. And the thing with MMA is you can be good at all different aspects, but it's about blending them together. That's what made GSP so great because, you put GSP in a boxing match, he's probably going to get his ass whooped. You put him in a jiu-jitsu match with, Gary Tony, he's going to get tapped out. You put him in the octagon, and I know you could say that about a bunch of lower-level guys as well, too, with specialists, but the point I'm trying to get at here is that I don't think Henry Cejudo blends all aspects of his game together really well, and that's something that I've had to learn his last 2 fights. And when I watched the Joseph Benavidez fight live, since he was so aggressive, I was like, wow, Cejudo's whooping his ass, but I've watched it like 5 to 10 times since then. And honestly, I've scored it for Joby every single time. And, the first couple times I watched it, I scored it 29-28 Joby. The last couple times, man, I honestly see a case for the 30-27, which sounds crazy, I know. But I see it, man. Now, in this spot with Reis, it's interesting because a lot of people act like Reis is super chinny. The only people that ever knock out Reis are the Bellator 145 champion, Patricio Pitbull, and the Bellator 135 champion, Eduardo Dantas. Those are the only guys that have ever knocked him out. So I don't really think he's chinny per se. And also, Paul, you mentioned how Wilson Reis got picked apart on the outside by DJ. What the fuck happened when Henry Cejudo fought DJ? I mean, see, at least with Wilson Reis, he got to give it his all, but his all wasn't good enough. With Cejudo, he didn't get to do jack shit. He just got tooled from start to finish, and that was embarrassing. And oh my God, that was bad. Now these two are going to square off. I think that Reis's hands have actually gotten a lot better the last couple of years. And ever since he grown man Dustin Ortiz, I really felt like he turned a corner in that fight. I'm going to go with Wilson Reis via split decision here. It might be controversial, might be kind of rough and shaky, but I'm going to go with Wilson Reis. I think he's the more confident fighter at this point.
Is that a bet? Do I smell a bet?
I'm thinking about it, but the thing is, it opened +3. Now it's like +270, bro. I want that +3. If they open it at that, I don't want to lose cents on the dollar and all that. But at the same time, a winner is a winner, right? But I already got 4 units on Alex White and 3 units on something later on the card. So I'm a conservative gambler. That's why I'm a long-term winner. So I'm gonna just stay put. And if Henry misses weight, you better believe I'm gonna take the shot on Wilson Reis.
So moving on, we got Sarah McMann minus 270 taking on Ketlin Vieira plus 230, and I'll go with Paul on this one.
I don't got much on this one, to be honest. I think Ketlin Vieira has been in relatively competitive matches. The Kelly Fashholt split decision was super short notice, I believe, and then Ashley Evans-Smith in her follow performance, where she looked a little bit better, was able to fend off a wrestler which I suppose is what she's going up against here, but it's a totally different beast. And Sarah McMann, basically, as long as it's anybody outside of the top 5 in the women's bantamweight division, she usually just runs rickshaw over top of them. So I kind of expect that to happen here against Vieira. That being said, I don't know. Vieira, we just haven't seen her do all that much against elite competition. So I don't really have a great read here, but I would forecast that Sarah McMann probably takes her down, grinds her, maybe goes for the finish because she's been getting a bunch of them recently too.
Dan?
Honestly, I think Sarah McMann is super overrated. So her current win streak, she beat Jessica Ai, who is 1-7 in the UFC. She beat Alexis Davis, who was coming off a 2-year maternity leave and, was in there with love handles and shit. And then after that, she beat Gina Manzini, who, doesn't even have a 500 record in the UFC. And that wasn't even a fight. I don't rate Sarah McMann very highly at all. I think that, she'll close her eyes and swing big bombs. But if she faces any kind of adversity, she will look for the door. And people like to talk about, oh, but she's only lost to, the 3 greatest bantamweight fighters of all time. But it's like, okay, if she lost to Ronda via judo throw to armbar, then I'd be like, okay, that's what everyone loses by. She lost in a striking exchange. She went down to a knee. Like, come on. And then against Misha, she quit in that fight. And against Amanda, we'll give her a pass for that. Amanda's the champ, right? Now, with Caitlin Vieira, I kind of put her UFC debut on the back burner. Like you said, Paul, she's coming off a short notice. And then let's see how she looks in her follow-up fight. Follow-up fight looked like a completely different fighter. On the feet, I saw glimpses of Amanda Nunes out there, the way she threw those combinations. I also hear she has a judo background. And she trains at Novo União. One thing we know about Novo União is their takedown defense has always been on point. You take that takedown defense, you mix it up with the judo background. I think she's got the hips to keep this fight standing. And if this starts to be back and forth, we know McMahon's going to will. So McMann has to come out here and dominate this fight, or she's going to lose. I don't think she will dominate the fight. I think she will lose. I'm going to go with Caitlin Vieira.
We've lost our host. Oh, no. What do we do now?
Well, we can talk about that fight, or we can wait for him to come back. I mean, it's funny, dude, because I want to know from your perspective who's the best Canadian prospect right now.
Best Canadian prospect right now? Put me on the spot, eh?
You got Gavin Tucker. It's funny. I like this guy, Norman Taleb, even though he's 34 years old and not a prospect.
Yeah, he's not a prospect. What about JBC? Junior Bacon Cheeseburger.
Yeah, serious. And his fight with Volkanovski, it's interesting because JBC is so much bigger than Volkanovski, but Volkanovski's got that rugby strength. You know what I mean?
He's an absolute animal. That should be interesting. I don't know. I would lean Volkanovski in that spot. I think based on pure aggression. I think that guy gives 0 fucks, and he's just gonna move forward and just either land a massive overhand right or now it's just the two of us.
If he's gonna win the fight, that's definitely how he's going to do it. My whole thing is, Jeremy Kennedy is one of those long, lean featherweights, and I feel like those dudes are kind of running the game nowadays. You saw that kid, Calvin Kattar, go out there and school Andre Fili. So this could be that situation where Volkanovski realizes, hey, maybe I need to drop a weight class. But at the same time, he's such a rugged, powerful dude that it wouldn't surprise me if he went out there and got this win. Someone's got to take their first L, unless I'm mistaken and they're not both undefeated.
I'm pretty sure they're both undefeated. I'm pretty much confident that they are.
That's
the Sarah McMann line, going back to that, is very, very high. What is -270? I think that's been dropping a little bit. It was as high as -300, I think, earlier today.
Hey, so Kelton's saying, let's go ahead and talk about Gil versus Jeremy.
All right, let's do it. You want to take it away here?
Sure. So right now, both of them are -110. And it's interesting, man, because with Jeremy, I always say it, he's a 500 fighter. But Gil, he's a sub-500 fighter in the UFC. He's like 1-4, man, and he's dropping to 145. We know the deal. We know he's popped hot in the past. He's looking kind of soft, man. I think this could be that spot where Jeremy comes in and, gets that once every 2 years knockout that he's known for.
But Gil Melendez is insanely, insanely tough. Let the record show. Has he ever been knocked out before in his career?
Not to my knowledge. Maybe early in his career, but he was also, you know, had some enhancement, and USADA is no slouch.
As Nate Diaz would say, you're all on steroids, though. I think you think it's. I bet you it's more prevalent than any of us would actually believe. To my knowledge, he hasn't ever been knocked out in his career. I don't know if I really see Gil getting knocked out. I could see it just being pretty competitive. There's just so many red flags with Gil. Obviously pissing hot. Having all of these years or 2 years almost off at this point. There's a bunch of people on this card with multiple years off in between fights. A lot of them for different reasons. But Gil, you know, he's almost kind of transitioned over to that broadcasting career at this point. That can help certain guys because they start being able to look at the fight game a little bit of a different way. Like, you look at Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley, I think, has improved leaps and bounds since he started doing the broadcast game because you start looking at it from the outside and figuring out things that you can do with your own game by watching other guys from a different lens. And Dominic Cruz, same thing. Dominic Cruz was out for 3 years, and he came back after looking at it from the outside in, and he came back and was just as good as ever. But
Dominic Cruz wasn't 1-4 in the UFC.
I don't know. If the line continues to right now, it's even. I saw Gil at like plus 105 last night, so I was hoping maybe it would move in that direction. If we got up to like plus 120, I'd take a little poke on Gil. But there's a massive red flags. I think the best bet on the board now, it's juiced up here, but if you wanted it as a parlay piece, it is just looking up the price here. Over 2.5 rounds between these two. Gil's basically never been knocked out unless there was something early in his career that I'm not factoring in. I know Stevens hits heavy and Gil's coming down to 145, but I could see this just kind of being a war that kind of keeps going and going. And Gil's never really been too much of a one hitter quitter kind of guy either. So I could see the over being a nice little parlay piece. Minus 230 price is high, but I frankly would be very surprised if this gets finished inside the distance.
The thing, man, and sorry, Kelvin, I got to say this, though. At 55, I would pick Gil just because he kind of has that, I don't want to say volume style, but, you know, it's almost like a volume boxing style, and he could win the decision against Jeremy, but him dropping the featherweight and also – I thought he was on his way out for a long time. You know, ever since the third Josh Thompson fight back in Strikeforce, that's the first time when I was like, this guy's kind of lost a step. And then that's why he came to the UFC. And, you know, his only win in the UFC, he got dropped in the third round by Diego Sanchez. And that was like 2011, 2012. So, and he was on, you know, the sauce back then. So now he's off the sauce. He's dropping a weight class. You know, I don't see why he can't get knocked out here. I know he's not known for getting knocked out, but this could be that first time. It's just, you know, with Jeremy, it's hit or miss. You got to roll the dice with Jeremy. He's a 500 fighter.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, well, I appreciate you guys keep that going for me. Sorry about the blackout there, guys. But one thing I wanted to say, I do like Jeremy Stevens here, and I do like the over 2.5 rounds for a lot of reasons. I'll start with the over. Basically, so I think the idea that Jeremy Stevens has such big hitting power is kind of one of the bigger delusions in MMA. Honestly, the guy hasn't gotten a clean punching knockout in a long time. The only knockout he's gotten in the last, I want to say 4 or 5 years, was the one against Dennis Bermudez, and that was a flying knee. I don't think maybe it was the juice back in the day that was giving him the power and he just lost it now. I'm not really sure what it is. And Gilbert Melendez, like Paul said, Gilbert Melendez is a durable guy, and he went in there against Edson Barboza, and I think that was his last fight. Went 3 rounds with Edson, so I think I think he did get his ass whooped, but he did manage to go all 3, and I think he's going to go all 3 here with Jeremy because, like I said, I don't think Jeremy has much finishing ability to begin with, and I think Gil is a durable guy, and I don't see Gil finishing by Jeremy by any means, so I'm actually really confident on the over here. And the reason I do like Jeremy Stevens as well, I do have 2.2 units on Jeremy at minus 110, and I do have the over in 2 units in a parlay with Adriano Martins. So I like Jeremy because I think he has a lot more in his career left to give. I think Gil takes time off too much. I think he hasn't necessarily been through more than Jeremy. Jeremy's been through his fair share of wars, but I think Jeremy, just looking at his past fights, he's had more to give. He's gone further. I mean, he just went 3 rounds with an absolute killer in Renato Moicano, and I was extremely confident in Moicano there. But he did go the distance with Moicano, who is the upper echelon of the 145 division. He's the future. The fact that he can still go out there with those guys and put up and it was a close fight up until the last minute. I mean, that fight was going 1-1 into the third. So, and Gil Melendez, I think maybe a little bit of career desperation going down to 145 here. Who knows what it is? I just think Jeremy has a lot more to give, and I think the way this fight goes is a striking match, and I think Jeremy Stephens gets the better of a striking match here. I think he's just going to be a little more active. I think his punches are going to be stinging a little bit more, getting Gil to be a little bit hesitant. I think we're going to see a gunshot Gil here. I like Jeremy via decision, so I got the over and I got Jeremy here, man. So I like it a lot. But moving along to an absolute firework of a fight, man. We got Ilir Latifi minus 125 taking on Tyson Pedro plus 105. And I'm going to start out with Dan on this one.
I mean, I see a lot of action on Tyson Pedro. So I went to watch the tape, and I was blown away by how underwhelmed I was. I will give him credit, you know, in that fight against Paul Craig, that underhook he had, and then he had the forearm against the side of the neck. You know, and he was ripping those huge knees. You got to give him credit for that. But, I mean, you know, it's Paul Craig, man. Like, you know, Paul Craig's not going to be in the UFC next month. So, you know, who cares? Now he's fighting Ilir Latifi. You know, Ilir Latifi got his life changed last time he fought against Bader. I mean, that was really bad. We don't know how he's going to come back. However, he took the proper amount of time off. I mean, that was September of last year. So, I mean, he took basically a year off. I think it might have been August of last year. But bottom line, he took close to a year. He took enough time off to let the chin heal, I hope. So now he's coming back. It's going to be interesting. There is a size difference here. Obviously, Tyson Pedro is the bigger guy. There's also an experience difference here. Latifi's far more experienced. I mean, he made his UFC debut against Mousasi, and he went all 3. You know, this other dude made his UFC debut against fucking Khalil Roundtree. You know what I'm saying, man? So
he got clipped. He got clipped by Roundtree.
You know, it's that level. So I don't know, man. I mean, I'm going to go with Ilir Latifi just because I see everyone on Tyson Pedro. But, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if this fight went either way.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if this fight went either way as well, man. I am going to pick Tyson Pedro, though. I will go with the underdog, and I do have Tyson Pedro in DraftKings just because it's a pretty good price on him. If he wins, he's probably going to do it early. So I do like Tyson Pedro for DraftKings. Not so much for betting, though. He's going to be my pick, and I definitely would advise picking him in Toutmaster for sure. But I think it's going to be those real – the strikes in the clinch he gets, like the knees to the bodies. Shout out to UFC Bro Picks. I know this is Bro Picks logic here right now, but I agree with Justin, man. I think Tyson Pedro is going to be able to get in, push Latifi up against the cage with that massive size advantage. I think he's going to be able to land strikes to the body and probably put Ilir Latifi down. Like Dan mentioned, the guy did go through kind of a life-changing knockout in his last fight. Now, he did take a good amount of time off, so props to him, and who knows, he might come back better. And originally, I was leaning Ilir Latifi because I felt like he probably had more tools. He had that strong-ass I believe he's Iranian. He's got that strong-ass Iranian blood wrestling. He can take guys down. He's got bombs. He could easily clip Pedro. Like Paul said, Pedro's been clipped before by Roundtree. So, I mean, Ilir's got tools here. It wouldn't shock me in the slightest, but I got Pedro here. I'll say via first-round TKO and got him in DraftKings as well. What about you, Paul?
I'm seeing a lot of people very, very confident on mostly on Pedro, but a couple people confident on Latifi here. I'm a big Latifi fan, always have been. I'm not too confident in this spot. Now, a couple things working for Latifi here is, you know, Pedro, when he got clipped by Khalil Roundtree, he just immediately went for that takedown, was able to push for that takedown. You're not taking down a little sledgehammer. He's literally like 5'8", and just a ball of muscle fighting at 205 pounds. Like with a Iranian wrestling background. Actually, when Rashad Evans was at Fight Network back in the day, Latifi was like spending time with the Black Zillions, and Rashad was just like, there's this guy, Latifi, that we got over at the gym right now. He's just like insanely strong wrestler. Like they were using him for training for fights and whatnot. So he already got and that was kind of just out of nowhere. He just brought up Latifi. And so Pedro, like kind of the takedown is not really an option. He can't really do that. In the clinch, I suppose he could do it. I just think it's going to be tough to hold on to a little ball of muscle that's that much lower than you. You won't really have the best leverage on him. If this is on the feet, Pedro's probably able to use, he's going to have the longer strikes, longer range that he's going to be able to have. But if you spend time on the feet with Vieira Latifi, eventually he's going to load up and land a big overhand right. So I'm leaning Latifi, but I think it's biased based on the fact that I kind of have like a little man crush on him. But yeah, it's going to be a fun fight. Fireworks. Someone's getting knocked out, I would imagine. Now that I just said that, obviously it's going to 3-round boring decision, but that's how MMA just goes sometimes.
Dan? Oh, I know you already went. All right, so moving on here, man. We got Rafael dos Anjos minus 190 taking on Neil Magny plus 165. Man, I like RDA here, man. Now, I did have him in DraftKings, and I was considering him parlaying up, but I decided to pass on both just because I don't think RDA, as long as the career he's had, he's never fought a guy like the size of Neil Magny before. I mean, he did fight his welterweight debut against Tarek Saffiedine last time out, but Tarek Saffiedine is not the kind of welterweight that's able to use the size and length to his advantage. RDA was not that much smaller than Tarek Saffiedine. I think when it comes to weigh-ins, we're going to see one of the biggest size differences we've seen. Neil Magny is an absolutely huge guy, and RDA, even for lightweight standards, isn't really that big of a guy. And now I think everybody can agree with this. When it comes to pound-for-pound technical skill, I mean, it's pretty clear RDA has the advantage here and probably has it everywhere. I mean, this is a guy that just not too long ago outpointed Anthony Pettis over the course of 5 rounds. And I think the way RDA gets this done, I think he needs to take a page out of Lorenz Larkin's book and chop away those legs, slow down Magny immediately, and pretty much outstrike him here over the course of 3 rounds. I don't think RDA has the kind of big, brutish power that Lorenz has. Lorenz is a former light heavyweight. I don't think RDA is going to be able to put away Magny, but I do like him here in a 3-round striking match. I think he can chop down the legs early and box Neil Magny to a 30-27 victory here. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I think the low kicks, the leg kicks are going to be the main key to victory here. And RDA he kicks like a mule, man. Like his leg kicks are some of the best. They were some of the best at 155. Does that transfer up to 170 in the same way? It's kind of tough to say in his fight against Saffiedine, who also is known for his leg kicks. We didn't see it all that much. But I think that is the key to victory here. If this thing goes to the mat, Neil Magny's really tricky with how long he is, but he's not going to catch RDA in anything that RDA hasn't seen before. I like RDA to get the job done here. I'm hoping that on or after the weigh-ins, everyone sees that Neil Magny is so much taller than him that the line comes down even more. I think it was at like minus 210 last week. I'm seeing like minus 190 right now. If we could get into the minus 150 range, I'd be very happy to lay a wager on Mr. Dos Anjos.
Dan?
Well, you guys are mentioning how RDA's leg kicks might be a big factor in this fight, but I mean, when RDA fought Nate Diaz, that we can agree that's the example of his best usage of leg kicks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was southpaw versus southpaw. This is southpaw versus orthodox. Neil Magny versus Lorenz Larkin was orthodox versus orthodox. That's why the leg kick was open. So if there's any kick that's going to be open here, it's the liver kick, and that's a very, very powerful kick. But in order for him to close the distance and get that, we're dealing with a 10-inch reach deficit here. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a legit welterweight versus a legit lightweight. Now, I agree with Kelton 100% that RDA is better everywhere. I mean, if they did a jiu-jitsu competition, RDA would tap his ass out. If they just straight box, you know, I'd probably say RDA would get that too. But, you know, Neil Magny has a very good history against southpaws. He's 3-1. He beat Kelvin Gastelum, who in my opinion is a better version of RDA. He beat Hector Lombard, Johnny Hendricks. The one loss, you know, I'm talking about top tier guys. The one loss is to Damian Maia, who we know fights nothing like RDA. So he's got a very good track record against southpaws, a very good track record as the underdog. I believe he's, 10-2 in his last 12 fights. I wouldn't count out Neil Magny here. And, you know, we can talk about RDA's win over Tarek, but I think we all know Tarek hasn't ever been the same since Rory McDonald, you know, took that soul. So, yeah, I'm actually go with the upset. I'm going to go with Neil Magny via a very grimy split decision where he loses the first round and people are live betting RDA. And then Magny takes over the last two, pops that jab, wins a split decision.
So moving on to the co-main event of the evening, we got the women's bantamweight title fight between the champion Amanda Nunes plus 110 taking on Valentina Shevchenko minus 130. And I'll start with Dan on this one.
Yes, sir. Well, I mentioned how I got another play on the card, and it is on the challenger, Bullet Valentina. You know, and I got to preface that by saying I bet Amanda Nunes her last two fights. I bet her plus 265 against Miesha Tate, plus 220 against Ronda Rousey, and I'm not afraid to fade her this time because this is a completely different matchup. And they fought before. And what was interesting about that first fight, obviously it was 3 rounds, but, you know, we know the story. Amanda came on early. Valentina came on late. If there was a 4th and 5th round, who knows what the hell would have happened, but we can all – I'm sure we're all in consensus that Valentina was taken over. The momentum was on her side. That being said, there were little mistakes that Valentina made in that fight that she's corrected since. And if you watch that fight, you know, Amanda – a lot of people say that Amanda's this technical striker, but if you watch that Ronda fight, it's not that she's a technical striker. It's that she's a powerful striker. So when, you know, when chicks feel that power, they're not used to fighting, you know, other girls with knockout power. You know, word on the street at ATT is that, you know, Amanda Nunes hits like a dude. She's dropping dudes with liver shots and shit like that. So when Miesha Tate and Sarah McMann and Ronda Rousey all felt that shot, they had never felt anything like that before in their lives. So, of course, they went down. With Bullet Valentina, we're talking about a chick that beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk 3 times, not in MMA, in pure striking. One does not simply beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk 3 times in a Muay Thai competition. I know there's a big size difference in this and that, but the technique, I mean, if you can beat that chick, you know, technique-wise, she didn't beat her by using her size. She beat her by out-techniquing her. Like, that's just – and now she's patched up, you know, the one weakness in her game, as you saw when she tapped out Juliana Pena. Even when she fought Holly Holm and she took her down. So now with Amanda, if you watch their first fight, Amanda wasn't feeling confident on the feet. This was the first time that, you know, she couldn't fight with her hands down, which she does. If you watch the Miesha fight, the Ronda fight, she fights with her hands down. But like I said, that power is so overwhelming that she can get away with it. She cannot get away with it in this spot against a southpaw like Valentina, who is such an expert with her distance. That counter right hand is money. And, you know, Amanda's got to take her down. And when she does take her down, she has to either damage her with ground and pound, try to pass, look to submit. When she got close to a rear naked choke last time, it was very interesting how Valentina fought it off. You know, I'm used to seeing people, you know, 2-on-1 fight the hands. But Valentina kind of moved, you know, her face a certain way away from the choke, which was the right thing to do. And, you know, she was able to turn the position and end up in the guard of Amanda Nunes at the end of the 2nd round. And then she took over the 3rd. I don't know how it's going to go down this time, but I think there's some really interesting mental dynamic between the two of them, man. I'm not going to sit here and say a world champion like Amanda Nunes is scared of someone, because I'm not an idiot, and I know she's not scared of anyone. But there's a little mental thing here, and the reason I say that is because Amanda knew she could put away Ronda and Miesha in the 1st round. She knows she can't put away Valentina in the 1st round. That fucks with her, because if you date back to her fight with Kat Zingano, the way she lost was she would overwhelm her in the 1st round. You know, by the 3rd round, she's already quitting. And, you know, so you say, well, that was her first L in the UFC. She's gotten better since then. We saw in the Valentina fight that it's still an issue. Now they're going to rematch. There's the mental dynamic where she knows she can't finish her. And I got a new champion here. I got 3 units on it. Bullet Valentina, I hit it minus 120. I see it's currently, minus 130? So, you know, there's still some value there. I say go ahead and bet that. You know, I think she's going to beat her.
So, man, I do agree with Dan, man. I do have Valentina here to capture that belt. And if I do have a fifth and final play, it will be Valentina. I'm currently just waiting to get the -110 I had when they were scheduled 2 months ago. Haven't got that yet. Hopefully I do. But I like everything Dan said, man. Valentina, she has honestly some of the best cardio I've seen in women's MMA. I remember thinking to myself in that Holly Holm fight, I felt like Valentina could have gone another 5 rounds there. She just looked so well and incredibly conditioned. And Amanda Nunes on the other side, you guys can argue that she has some of the worst cardio in the women's bantamweight division. She does slow down, and we've seen that. You go back in the tape, and it happens every single time. She slows down every single time, and one can argue that maybe Amanda gassed in that first Shevchenko fight because she was pacing herself for a 3-round fight, and now she's going to pace herself for a 5-round fight. Who says that she can do that? I'm not entirely sure she can do that, and I think even if she wanted to do that, maybe she can't. Maybe it's just a mental thing for her to go in there and kill, because Amanda Nunes is a killer, and I do think Dan's right that Valentina has this fight the mental edge here. Amanda Nunes knows she wasn't able to finish her in that first fight, and I think we've seen an improved Valentina since then. You can argue we've seen an improved Amanda Nunes as well, but that's kind of hard to say because I think Amanda Nunes has had 2 very favorable matchups in front of her in the last 2 fights with Tate and Rousey, who are both now 2 retired fighters. So I think Valentina here, she's got the better striking. Honestly, she may even have the better jiu-jitsu. So I'm not entirely sure what Amanda Nunes can do here. I think her best course of the best path she has to victory is kind of just to play a lot slower than she usually does. Try to pick off those first 3 rounds. Maybe if she wants to go in for the kill, maybe she gets it. Who knows? Just because Valentina survived the first time, maybe she won't this time. But I think all odds are in Valentina's favor, in my opinion here. I think she should be closer to -200. I got Valentina via a unanimous decision here. A late finish wouldn't shock me in the slightest, but either way, man, I think we got new champ here. I got her in DraftKings. I am going to take a bet on her if it hits -110. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I'm pretty much on board. This is my biggest bet of the night. Valentina Shevchenko here. I was already on her at UFC 209, International Fight Week, had a bunch of money, ready to roll. Let's go, new champ. And then day of the fight, obviously, Amanda pulls out with the sinusitis. Now, I've had sinusitis. It fucking sucks. It's awful. Like, you feel like you have a golf ball poking out of your head, but she was going through, she made weight, she did everything that week, and then she just woke up the next day, and the sinusitis was too bad. Like, if you were cutting weight, that would have been an issue the whole week. You probably could have got out. I'm saying that it was a bad cut, and she was really not feeling like she had a chance that night. So she pulled out of International Fight Week. Big, huge event, massive opportunity for her. So here we are at this one. I saw an interview before we came in here of Amanda Nunes saying that she has 15 pounds to lose. So she still has a bunch of weight to lose before she's able to do her water weight. She doesn't strike me as someone who's crafty enough or good enough with the English language to lie. Like, I was looking deep into her eyes, and I don't think that this was a lie. Like, I think she's more or less way off weight right now. I'm feeling great about this. I don't think Amanda Nunes has 5 rounds in her. I think, to go to Kelton's point where he's saying, like, maybe she can pace herself. I think if she tries to pace herself in those early rounds, then she loses those rounds. She's got to come on, guns a-blazing, try to bank a 10-8 early on, hope to try to finish Valentina, because rounds 3, 4, and 5, it's going to be Valentina's show. So I like Valentina. I like Valentina a lot here. I got her at -115. It's my biggest bet of the night.
Paul, you're being super nice giving her 15 pounds, because I was thinking 20 or 25, man, maybe in 30.
Hey, a lady never talks about her weight, right? It's not, who am I? Who am I to nitpick like that? But she said 15. We'll give her the benefit of the doubt. Or maybe we'll say 17.5. She got 17.5.
We ain't judging appearance here. This is a 5-1-7 now.
Well, we know Valentina doesn't have to worry about that at all. She'll come in at 133 because she's probably been walking around at 133. She is built to go the 5 rounds here. We have seen her against Holly Holm just outpoint her over the course of 5 rounds. I just don't see a chance for Nunes in the last 3 rounds to get this done. So, Nunes, if you want to bet Nunes, if you're really big on her, it's Nunes inside the distance. Nunes, you don't even want to say knockout or submission. Just inside the distance, I think that would be the only play. But you will be at odds against me because I think Valentina maybe finishes late in the fight or maybe just strings her along and it'll get ugly in the last couple rounds.
So all 3 of us say new champ on Saturday night. The question is, will any of us say there will be 2 new champs on Saturday night? Because we got Demetrius Johnson minus 1250 taking on Ray, the Tasmanian Devil Borg, plus Mexican Devil Borg, plus 800. I'll start with you on this one, Paul.
All right. Well, I saw Daniel actually saying this, and it was a lot of the same thoughts that I had. A couple of the things that we've seen DJ struggle with in the past against Tim Elliott was in grinding, in the scrambles. That's Ray Borg's bread and butter. So if there was a weakness at the most well-rounded fighter who's minus 1250 in this fight, and probably so, it would be that. Do I think it's going to matter? I don't. Demetrius Johnson is just such a consummate professional here, and I think he'll just be too much for Ray Borg. Not to say Ray Borg isn't special, and a few more years from now he's not going to be even better. DJ's time, I just don't see. Besides, just getting caught in a submission, Borg manages to get him down, finds a scramble, finds his neck, taps him out. I could see that done. So if you wanted an absolute total flyer plus 1650 Borg by submission, that would be the way that I see Borg getting this done. Don't take the plus 800, take the plus 1650. I'd be shocked if Borg pulled a Cody Garbrandt to Dominic Cruz here. And an outpointed for pound king in my books. 5 rounds. That's just not going to happen. So DJ likely wins. I wouldn't be shocked whether it's inside the decision. I don't even think you can really touch DJ. It's whether you just want to take a total punt play and take that submission play on Ray Borg. Winning night and you get into that last event, just throw some lunch money at the plus 1650 and hope that Borg gets the job done. But I think we will not have 2 and news in this in UFC 215.
Dan?
Man, it'd be super cool if we had 2 and news, because anytime you get a plus 800 underdog that wins, it's always a cool moment in the sport. But as far as the matchup is concerned, well, firstly, before I talk about that, if you guys watched Embedded, if you saw DJ's impersonation of Dominic Cruz, holy shit, that was spot on. When I watched it, I was like, damn, this dude's good, even though I've known he's good for a very long time. He beats all these dudes at their own game. He's about to break Anderson Silva's record. Man, Ray Borg's not a guy that I necessarily count out. I think he's really fucking good. I've thought he was really good since his UFC debut. And, his one real loss, I don't consider the Dustin Ortiz fight an L. I thought he won that fight. But his one real loss was to Justin Scoggins. And people like to talk about how he got dominated by Justin Scoggins, as if that's evidence that he's going to lose to DJ. But, I don't think it's comparable. Justin Scoggins is a 5'9" karate guy. In my opinion, Justin Scoggins could be the best guy at flyweight. It's just a mental thing with him. He'll be dominating someone, then he'll dive headfirst into a guillotine. It's that kind of situation. He's never gotten beat, pillar to post, bell to bell. It's always been, he was winning and then he did some dumb shit. So that was the best night of his life, and he was mentally on. And I've always said that I think Justin Scoggins could be a world champion if he got his head right, but clearly he hasn't got his head right. But that night he looked like a world champion. And besides that, Ray Borg came back in spectacular fashion. He moved to Greg Jackson's. He was training in the elevation anyways because he was at the other gym in Albuquerque. But bottom line, he moved to the better gym. He's getting sued by the old gym. But that's a different story. And he's in there training with the best. He's training with John Jones. He's training with all these awesome fighters. He's probably not training with John Jones because they're one's 205 and one's 125. But bottom line, he's training with the same coaches that led that dude to a world title. So, like you said, Paul, the areas we've seen DJ have trouble in, it dates back to the Pickett fight in the WEC where, he got taken down. The Cruz fight, he lost in the exchanges in the grappling. He got taken down. He got suplexed a couple times. The McCall fight, the first time, third round, he got back mounted, almost got pounded out, but McCall started fucking around, he wanted to put on a show, and it cost him. And then most recently, the Tim Elliott fight in the first round, off the top of my head, I believe Elliott snapped down and almost got a Darce or something like that. So, we know Ray Borg's best quality is his scrambles, his scrambling ability. So can he pull something off? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they were scrambling back and forth early and Ray Borg, got on top or something. Now, on the feet, it's interesting because I felt like Ray Borg's last fight against Jussier Formiga, that was the first time he really let his hands go. And you watch those first opening exchanges, man, he's got some fast hands. And now that he feels comfortable letting it go, that was in Brazil. Look, one doesn't simply go to Brazil, let alone fight Jussier Formiga in Brazil and win the decision, on all three judges' scorecards. So that was very impressive in my mind. You can make the argument, Formiga's on his way out. He's getting older. But still, man, to beat the number 3 guy on planet Earth in Brazil was a big deal. We're talking about a minus 1250 versus a plus 800, right? So, I'm not trying to parlay the minus 1250. If both my bets cash, maybe I'll take a half unit shot on Borg just, for shits and giggles. Hope that he pulls something crazy off because, look, when Bisping fought Rockhold, we didn't expect that. When Silva fought Weidman, I didn't expect that. I know a lot of other people did. I didn't. When TJ fought Barao, I thought Barao was easy money at like minus 1,000. So this is still a fist fight. So don't be surprised. At the end of the day, I'm thinking a DJ decision, but I'm hoping for a new champion.
Man, so when it comes to Demetrius Johnson fights, there's one big difference I have with those fights with any other. The way I look at them, like whenever I see them announced, whenever I see a fight announced, I immediately think, okay, how is this fight going to go? When a Demetrius Johnson fight gets announced, I think, all right, what is fighter B's path to victory? And when I thought of Ray Borg's path to victory here, I thought, all right, so Demetrius Johnson, the only real trouble he's had in the last couple of years is the some of the grappling exchanges he had with Tim Elliott in their fight. And Ray Borg, who's a sensational grappler, I thought, all right, if he can go out there, he can win some scrambles, and maybe he can get lucky enough to win those scrambles and pull off 3 rounds, or maybe he can get super lucky and pull off a submission on Demetrius Johnson. But then I kind of thought to myself, Demetrius Johnson, he's such a smart fighter. I don't think he's going to allow this fight to get to the ground. I think he knows that that's Ray Borg's only shot of winning this fight. I think he's absolutely capable enough of keeping this a standing fight. In a standing fight, I think Ray Borg is the future, and I think he's a very talented fighter, but I think Demetrius Johnson is quite a few levels above, and he should probably soundly outstrike Ray Borg here over the course of 5 rounds. And I am going to give Ray Borg the benefit of the doubt and say that he does survive 5 rounds here, because I think the dude's come a long way, and I think that shows a lot that he's come back with some really good wins after the Justin Scoggins fight. I think he's the complete opposite of Scoggins. I think the guy is very mentally aware and very mentally tough. I like Borg a lot, man, but this is not going to be the time for him, man. I think he's getting in there. He's getting thrown in there against DJ much, much too early, just because of the lack of contenders in the division, similar to how Kyoji Horiguchi was thrown in there just a little too early. Ray Borg, Horiguchi, those guys are early 20s. These guys haven't even hit the midpoint of their 20s yet, man, and they're getting thrown in there against DJ just because of the lack of contenders in the division. But I think Ray Borg maybe one day could be your future champ, just not his time now. I say Demetrius Johnson outstrikes Borg here over the course of 5 rounds. Obviously, a finish wouldn't surprise me. We're looking at the best fighter in the world here. So that being said, I do have DJ in DraftKings. Obviously, at minus 1250, I don't want to parlay that up. And I don't necessarily think him finishing the fight is a lock, man. So I just say stay away from this fight altogether. Play DJ in DraftKings, and that's about it, man. So I think we have 1 and new, and then I think we have 1 and still. So that's going to do it for this 12-fight card, man. As always, I'm going to ask these guys their prediction for fight of the night, and I'm going to ask these guys for their prediction for the 2 performance of the nights. So I'm going to go first, man. I actually am going to go with a sleeper here for fight of the night. I think we're looking at Gavin Tucker versus Rick Glenn for fight of the night here. I think both guys very exciting strikers. I think it goes 3. I think we're looking at a very exciting 3-round match here, man. And when it comes to the performance bonuses, first one I got to give to the new women's bantamweight champion of the world, Valentina Shevchenko. For the second one, I will say my man Alex White gets that finish over Mitch Clark. So, Dan, what about you?
Man, you took my 2 bets, and obviously my 2 bets are going to win performance. Alex White is going to knock out Mitch Clark probably in 1 round. And Valentina, when she wins that title, obviously she's going to get that performance of the night bonus. But as far as fight of the night, let's go with Gilbert versus Jamie. Let's have a nice 3-round Mexican slugfest, in Canada, right? It's going to be good. I'll say that they slug for 3 and they get fight of the night.
Paul?
I could see Pedro versus Latifi just getting all sorts of silly all over the octagon, bunch of stanky leg all over, and eventually someone goes to rest. As for performance of the night, if we have an new, I imagine Valentina Shevchenko would be in the mix there. And for the other performance of the night, if it's they love giving it to the top people. This is kind of boring for me to say, but Ray Borg over the course of 5 rounds and puts on a technical display, they're probably going to give it to him as well.
All right, guys, so that is it. I want to thank both these guys so much for coming on. It was an absolute honor having them both on. Dan for the second time, Paul for the first. I'm going to let these guys plug away all their stuff because both these guys have great content available and big things in the future for, I know, both of them. So, Paul, plug away your stuff, man, and tell the people where they can find you.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Paul Shag. Probably some big announcements coming up in the next few weeks or so, hopefully by the beginning of October. Can't really say right now. I'm not at liberty to, but it'll be good for all former fans of the Bookie Beatdown podcast. Let's just say that. Plus, to talk about fights or whether certain things are sandwiches or basically anything that could possibly come to mind on Twitter. That's at Paul Shag. So I'll send it off to Dan.
Well, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you so much for having me. You can follow me on Twitter at Best Fight Picks. If you want my plays, they're free. BestFightPicks.com. I also have a podcast. It's called Half the Battle. You can find it anywhere you find podcasts. Just search Half the Battle. Going to be dropping a new one tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Just going to keep that long-term wins coming, man. About close to 40 units profit this year, about 38.41, 20% ROI. You know what I'm saying? It's a long-term game. And also on the podcast, not only do we break down the fights, but had some really good fighter, interviews lately. Kevin Lee, Mike Perry, Vic's always on the show, Cheeto. So I've had some really good ones, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Half the Battle on at Best Fight Pick. Thank you very much, Tom.
Absolutely, man. As always, you guys can follow me at Twitter at MMA Killing. I'm down to talk fights with just about any of you guys. Subscribe to the channel. All kinds of fun stuff like this coming. Hit the like button. Takes 2 seconds. Comment below. I want to know who all you guys are betting on this weekend, man. Me, fortunately, I am on a 2 UFC event winning streak right now, so I want to keep that going and complete that trifecta, man. Like it a lot. I've switched up my play style recently. I've been going with a little bit less plays, and I'm very confident this week. Adriano Martins for the win for me. But that's going to do it for me, guys. Appreciate you all watching. Appreciate all you live chat participants. I would have been a lot more active in the chat, but my laptop was giving me some problems. But that's it, guys. I appreciate you all very much. Paul, thank you. Dan, thank you. And that's going to do it for me. Enjoy the fights this weekend, guys, and stay safe during this scary hurricane season. Have a good one.